Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne. This is Inside Exec. Today we're going to talk about promotion, but particularly we're going to talk about being passed over for promotion. And I will start the conversation by saying, yes, I have been in that situation where I was passed over for promotion or a move that I thought was the logical sequence. Having looked at the history of an organisation, this is what happened in this sequence. And it didn't happen. I was surprised, I think, more than anything. I wasn't disappointed because I hadn't really focused on it being a promotion as such. It was just a progression. Yes, yeah, it was more money. It was a different position. But it was more that was historically, that was the progression of how you worked through an organisation. So when I came back from some leave and found that I wasn't going through that progression, it made me actually think about whether that was the progression that I wanted take in the organisation, and out of it came an opportunity to go into a completely different stream that I hadn't thought about before. And the promotion that came out of that was 2 levels above what I would have got in the automatic one, and started a course that has continued through to this day of things that I do. So opportunity came out of that situation where I was passed over for promotion. But the most difficult thing for me in that situation was that the person who did get promoted was embarrassed by the fact and was constantly apologising for the fact that they had got the move in the organisation that I and she would have expected that I was going to get. That was what I didn't know how to deal with. I didn't know how to respond to that because, bottom line, I wasn't overly concerned, but that would have been insulting to say, oh, well, I don't care. That's not fair on her and her abilities and her progression, which is, that was the progression that she wanted to make. And the organisation had chosen to move her rather than to move me. So that was, I had to respect that was a decision that they made, taking into account all of the qualities that we both offered. As I said, I really wasn't disappointed, but I did find myself floundering for how to react in that situation to the person who had been promoted. So I just throw that into the mix as part of the discussion.
That's good, but that's a good example of one scenario and how it turned out even better. I like to keep that in mind because that's a good thing. It's never a good feeling to be passed over. That rejection, or you think you start all sorts of things going in your mind. One of the things, because we're human, sadly, some people might understandably feel like they start complaining about it to people, thinking it's in safe environment, etc. That's not very helpful. If you're going to do that, certainly do it out of work, but not even with. Yeah, just that to me is not very helpful. Understandable, but not helpful. The thing is to find out is why you've been passed over, and find out maybe it is just a circumstance where the other person had more of what they wanted than you. That's fine. Then if that's the career path you want, then how do you go about bridging that gap for next time? But also it's about finding out what is it you want and what are you doing about it. So in other words, we all can do a bit better self-promotion. I don't mean being one of those annoying people that I'm the greatest. I'm not meaning that. I'm talking about when you participate in things and they work, share it. Don't be just a quiet achiever all the time. Just find the right time and the right balance and place. My reaction to that, if that was me, I would like to think, because I'm not emotionally involved right now, I like to think that I look at ways to get more involved. So more involved in my own role, yes, that's a given, but also in, say, cross-functional projects where I can add value to the organisation by participating and working with other team members across the organisation. And in that sense, adding value, and then let the results speak. Networking with people in other areas, finding out what sort of things, what make the best in class for a role like that within my organisation or another one. So if it is about project management, for example, what makes the best project manager. Who's been recognized for that? What qualities do they have? What have I got out of those in that list? And what do I need to work on? The other thing is, I don't mind saying it because I know people appreciate it and get a lot out of it. Get yourself a mentor. A mentor doesn't have to be a formal program and whatever, internal or external. There's people that you can learn from that will become your mentor, and those can be inside the organization or somewhere you worked before, or a colleague that you worked with before. And that is to help you bounce ideas and talk about how to behave in certain situations. So look for your technical gaps that you might need on the technical side. Look at the interpersonal skills that you might need to grow more. Or look at, you've got all of those in spades, that's fine. Then it's just the opportunity. Like the example with you, Kim, is that it gives you an opportunity to go somewhere else, and then you did other courses and you end up going up the career path a step faster even. So that's the sort of thing to focus on rather than the rejection, but don't just ignore the rejection and being passed over. So you just want to know why. And if you know why, that might be material or immaterial. But once you know what to deal with.
I think too, with the why, when I go back to my recruitment days, I have to understand that sometimes the decision, so say it's between three people, sometimes the decision is almost a toss of the coin. There is really nothing much between people. And at the end of the day, it is a human to human decision. And sometimes we don't make the best decisions, but we make our decisions based on the impressions that people have made and the information we've got. And so we do our best decision. It mightn't always be the right decision, and you have to accept that they might not have chosen the right person in this instance. That's an issue for them.
Yeah.
What I need to do is get on with what I need to do, because I am in control of my career and my activities. And we've got to keep coming back to this. Don't let other people run your life for you. If you're in a situation now where you're a senior manager, you've got there for a reason. Keep managing yourself as well as you manage the people that are working with you and for you.
Again, by you trying to learn new skills and get new experiences through participating in other things, that might help you decide, oh, you know what, I love what I'm doing, but there is this angle of my career that now I'm interested in. I have exposure to it now and I like it, and I think I like to pursue it. So again, it just broadened the observation for you and knowing yourself.
And not getting a promotion, I think, is not the end of the road.
No.
It just means that door's not open at the moment. And it might well be that it's not open for a reason, as it was in my case, in that particular case. It was better for me to be moving in a different direction. And in that sense, the people who made the decision had a better idea of what the organisation needed than I did. Because I didn't know the whole of the organisation. I knew this one area that I was in, and I knew what the natural progression was in that area. And yes, I knew the rest of the organisation was there, but I had not ever considered the rest of the organisation. What the management group decided at that point is they had seen some qualities and skills in me that I wasn't using in my current job, that I wouldn't use had I followed that progression, but that they knew were needed in the organisation, but elsewhere in the organisation. And so even without it being part of the job that I was doing at that point, they had seen some qualities that they wanted elsewhere in the organisation. So in that sense, they were making the right decision for the organisation. And that's what they're there to do. You know, the bottom line is they're making a decision for the organisation, not the person. As hard as it is, you shouldn't take it personally, because it's not about you. It's about the organisation and what the organisation needs. And if you haven't been able to express how you can meet the organisation's needs, then they can't make the decision to choose you. It's just not there. The evidence is not there.
And guess what? You'll be in that position yourself where you're making those decisions. So, and faced with all of those. If you haven't already, if you have, you already understand what we're talking about. If you haven't, you will get that experience. And then you know that sometimes it is, very close call.
I think too, if I can add in here just some advice for the people who are making the decisions, and it's the same recruitment generally, I will say, is that tell people why. Don't just
Give
say,
them
on this
feedback.
occasion
Yes.
we had other, it was a strong field and we're sorry, but on this occasion we've gone with someone else. Tell people why, because they will never get any better at presenting themselves if you don't tell them why. If you do tell them why, it gives them a commitment to you as an organisation, you as a potential boss of theirs in the future or a boss of theirs now. The communication is the vital thing. If you keep that communication line open, you're in a better position for the organisation to be choosing the right people long term.
That is so true. I recently heard of a very senior appointment where the person, one of the people applied for the job, didn't get it and was a very, very well-respected candidate. The leader of that group took the person out for coffee and had the conversation, and not just with that person, but with the 3 other applicants. And I just thought it was wonderful that I know they're very busy, and they made that investment in, put their time in to help someone else who they're not working with even. It's not she and he, well, those 3 people weren't in their organisation.
It's about, if you've been passed over for a promotion and you want to know why, it's about asking why.
Yeah.
But it's about asking why in a way that allows the people
Learning.
view unpleasant information that they probably have been avoiding doing, because it's not an easy task to say, no, sorry, you're unsuccessful. It's one of the worst jobs you have when you're doing recruitment, is to have to write to 500 people and say, you missed out, knowing that within that group there were probably really potentially good people for the organisation. I go back to the time when I used to do graduate recruitment campaigns, 1,100 applications for 8 positions. How can you possibly know that you've chosen the right people? So it becomes a numbers game to a certain extent, and then it becomes the interview process. So tell people why in a general sense, or what the organisation was looking for. And yes, in some cases you might get a bit of to and fro from the person saying, oh, but I could have done that. Then it is your opportunity to say, you didn't show us that at the time. We couldn't see that at the time for whatever reason. So perhaps your resume needs to do this, or perhaps when you're at interview you need to say that. Give people feedback, because longer term, in the broader scheme of organisations, you don't know when you will interact with that person again. You don't know when your paths will cross. So the more you can do to keep communication lines open, to keep understanding at a level that can be acted upon, then the more benefit you're going to get long term, one way or another.
Getting the learning and you're putting it in action to help you for next time.
I think we've covered that now, so you should be at least not happy, but at least have a path to follow if you do get passed over for promotion.
Yeah.
Now, I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne. This is Inside Exec.